Welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the details page of the Greek New Testament study app. And I'm going to show it to you here in an Android emulator. So this is emulating a Google Pixel 6, but because it's an emulator, you can see my cursor and see what I'm clicking on. And if you notice down here in our navigation bar, there is no icon to go to the details page. You go to the details page because you're looking for the details about a word. So there's two ways to get there. One is from the read page on the Greek text. If we click on any of these words, then you remember it pulls up this blue dialog box that shows us the information. And if this doesn't look like anything you've seen before, then check out the video on the read screen to see how this works. Then we click on this blue dialog box and it takes us to the details page. The other way to go is from the search page. And again, check out the video on the search page for information on how that works. But for instance, if I was to click here and search on the word logos, and then because it says open in details, when I click on this line, it also takes me to the details page. So here we are. The details page tells us the part of speech. It gives us a gloss, tells us how many occurrences there are, how many forms this word appears in the Greek New Testament, and then these two additional lines, add note and add word to vocabulary list. Every one of these lines is clickable. So for instance, in this first one right here, if I click on this line, it takes me to a place where I can change the gloss. So imagine that I don't think divine utterance is a good gloss. I want to get rid of that. So I would click here, and then I'm going to click and backspace, and I just want it to be a word, speech, or analogy. I click save, and now there we are. We have a word, a speech, or analogy. If I go back to the read page and I click on one of these, you see it's picked up the new gloss. And this will always be true. You've changed it in your database. It will always be changed. If you're backing up your database, and again, if you're not sure about that, check out the video on backup and synchronize functions in the program. If you're backing it up, then this change is backed up as well. So from now on, logos will always mean a word, speech, or analogy. Notice also as I click on here that there's this watermark behind the box that says EN. That stands for English. That means that when I type, I'm typing in English. Now, I programmed this in English, and I'm doing this video in English, so of course my keyboard is set to English. Really, if your keyboard's set to something else, all the EN tells you is that whatever your keyboard is, that's what's going to come out. If your keyboard is set to Greek, you're going to get Greek. If your keyboard's set to Russian, you're going to get Russian. But my keyboard's set to English, and so I'm getting English. And you can also change that. You can type in Greek here for some reason if you wanted to. What you do is you press the ampersand. It's not on this part of our mobile app, and it is here. Here's the ampersand. Press that, and notice this changes to GR for Greek. This means as I type English letters in, what I'm going to get out are Greek. So for instance, I'm going to type F, F, E, R, W. And notice what comes out is the Greek letters, phi, epsilon, rho, and omega. And again, I could put this on a new line to make it easier, but you could type anything you want. We could type logos again. There's probably not a lot of reasons you would use the Greek here, but it is helpful if ever you want to add Greek to when you're typing in and changing the definition or the gloss. I'm just going to save that. But if you wanted to not save your changes, you can just click on the back button. So for instance here, I'm going to add a bunch of random text. I'm going to click on the back button and notice the random text isn't there. It's only saved if you hit saved. And this same box appears if you click on add a note, except it's empty. A note is something that you can add for yourself. It can be anything you want, and it's just stored with your database, although it is backed up if you're backing up your information. So if you're syncing between different devices, then your notes will follow you. So let's add a note that this can also mean reason. And I'm going to click save, and now you see where it used to say add a note, now it says note, and it shows us reason, and we can click here. And again, just like in the other one, I can use the ampersand, and I could type in Greek if I wanted to. So these two allow you to change what's there. Now let's look at the occurrences line. There's 330 occurrences of this word logos in the Greek New Testament. If I click on this line, it's going to show me every single one of them. It's going to start in Matthew and move down to Revelation. And on each of these lines, if I click on them, it will open up and it will show me the verse, and it will highlight the word for me. So here it is in Matthew 5:32, here it is in Matthew 5:37, and so on. Like in other places in the program, if you want to close these, just click and hold. Don't click and hold to get it to close up. Because watch what happens if I click on this line. It actually takes me to the book of Matthew in that verse. So we're going to go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 32. And again, they're all highlighted. Let's click on one of these, click on the blue, come back here, look at the occurrences. And so you get through this as you would by scrolling. So if you want to get all the way down to the ones that and see if there's any in Revelation, as you can see, this is going to take us a little time. This is a case where personally, I like to use the scroll buttons. And if that doesn't make sense to you, go back and check out the video on the read screen. I'm going to go back over to the read screen. I'm going to click on the little blue icon here, and I'm going to click on this bottom button, Show Scroll Buttons. And I'm going to accept that. And again, if you've seen the video, you know this. Now we've got these little double arrows. And if we click to make them face left, we get these transparent buttons. And I told you in that video that these go everywhere there's a screen you can scroll. So here, when I get into all our occurrences, I've got the buttons. I'm going to turn them on. Now if I want to go to the bottom, boom, there I am at the bottom. And if I want to go to the top, I'm at the top. So I've told you in one of the videos, I'm presently preaching through 1 Peter. Let's say I want to look at Logos in 1 Peter. I can go to the bottom and click scroll up a couple times, and there we are. Here's the 3 times Peter uses Logos. So this is a case where I find the scroll buttons to be very helpful to have turned on. And again, if you just click this so the arrows point to the right, then they're not there and they won't bother you, but you can enable them when you want to scroll through all of this information. So again, click to open up any of these lines, click and hold to close the line. I'm not sure why you might need to do that, but you can do it. And simply, once you've opened it, if you click on it again, then the program will take you back there. And of course, where the word is will be highlighted. And as we saw, it will be highlighted everywhere. There's another place it's used, and I think if I remember, yep, there we go. There was one more verse, and it had a couple instances of Logos. So I told you as well, we can get there from the search screen. Why don't we do that? Here's Logos in the search screen. We click on it, we come here. It's the exact same page we were on. Occurrences takes us back to occurrences. You see, we've got the changed gloss. We've got the note. Forms will show you all the forms that this word appears in. Now, for a noun, obviously, the most you can possibly have is 10. The nominative, the genitive, the dative, the accusative, and the vocative in both the singular and the plural. And again, you can click on any of these to show you just the places where it appears here. So notice in each of these, any of these I open, it's going to say Logos. Notice this verse has more than one, so it highlights the extra for us as well. But there's always going to be Logos in these verses because that's what we told it. We only wanted to see Logos. And you notice up here at the top now it shows us the form we're looking for, and then it shows us the original. So we could come in here and say, oh, when is it used as a genitive plural? We click on that and we find, okay, there's 9 verses in Scripture where it's used as a genitive plural. And here it tells us this is logon, but it's from logos. And as we click through, you'll see when we open these, all of them are going to have logon because that's what we told it to do. Now, you may remember from the video on the forms, or if you haven't seen that, you can find that by watching the video on the forms, that nouns are presented to you by default, nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and then if there was vocative, it would be at the bottom. But you can change that order. So I'm going to go to the forms page. I'm going to click on the little blue icon here, and I'm going to change it to show it nominative, vocative, accusative, genitive, dative. I'm told that this way, the way it is by default, is the American way, and this way is the British way. I don't know if that's true. That's what people tell me. But now notice when we change it, let's go back to our search. Let's go back to our details page. Let's look at our forms. And sure enough, they're now presented in that order. There's no vocative here, so you don't see that. If there was, you'd see it after the nominative. But once you click in forms how you want them to show, then they'll always show here. So add word to vocabulary list does exactly what you think it would do. It adds the word into your vocabulary list. And again, if that doesn't make sense, watch the video on creating new vocabulary lists so that you can add it to a list later. So let's go ahead and click that, and it tells us, okay, the word's added. And then over here, if we were in our vocabulary list and we were going to make a new list, again, watch the video to see how this is. When we come into the manual list, well, there it is. It's added logos for us. We can add the word. We can save it somewhere if we want. I'm not going to do that at the moment because I'm not interested in that. But that's what the adding word to vocabulary list does. There's one other thing I want to show you about this page, and that has to do with verbs. So all we've seen here is a noun, but let's click over here on a verb, epistrepso. Notice you get one more item that you don't get with nouns, and that is for any verb that appears 10 times or more in the Greek New Testament, you will have the principal parts of that verb. Now, it's only the principal parts that appear. So notice we've got the present progressive, we've got the future, we've got the aorist, active, and middle. We have no perfects, neither the perfect active nor the perfect middle passive. Then we have the aorist passive. And that's because if we were to check on the forms, you'll see we have presents, we have future actives, we have aorist actives. As we scroll on through, we have aorist passives. We have no perfects. So there is no principal part listed here. Even though, perhaps if you search for this anywhere in Greek literature, probably there are middle forms as well. But if they don't appear in the Greek New Testament, then you won't see them here. And like all the other forms, you can click on this and you can make changes. Notice this defaults to Greek because it assumes you're putting principal parts in Greek. But if for some reason you wanted to change that, you could type in English here as well. So I don't want to make any changes. That's all correct. I'm just going to click the back button and go back. So that's the details page. I hope that helps you and is informative as you're reading through your Greek New Testament.